Greetings, dear viewers. My name is Elmer Blaster and I am a 22-year-old male. I will be sharing my harrowing experience which happened while I was playing the Roblox game Combat Initiation. Before we begin, this game was recommended to me by my late friend Jay Song. I never managed to play the game with him before he passed, but I thoroughly enjoyed the gameplay experience alone and had effectively mastered all the mechanics available to the player within a month of intermittent gameplay. Only recently had I played the game again, seeing as a new update had been released. Upon joining, I was flooded with familiar memories which put a warm smile onto my face. I spent little time taking in the new sights that the spawn had to offer and immediately went to start a solo lobby, but seeing the reservoir of players filling the spawn area, I decided to play the game multiplayer for the first time. As I had never played the game with another player prior, I decided to set the player limit to 3. Immediately, a player with the username Audaciety joins the lobby. Right off the bat, he appears to be pretty experienced, so I'm sure that I'll be in good hands while I relearn the basics. About 5 seconds after, another player joins the lobby, and upon trying to read their username I couldn't help but feel something ominous. Something which sent a chill down my spine. The characters in their username seemed to switch and shift, as though playing some cruel trick on me which I simply couldn't decipher the meaning of. Regardless, I started the game assuming that perhaps this was some sort of newly added customization feature which hadn't been thoroughly tested. In hindsight, playing with other users on the same date the update released wasn't a great idea, and this was a mistake which I would soon come to regret. Flash forward to the game starting. All three of us are in the elevator, a new detail which I had not yet witnessed but was quite pleased to see added to the game. Audaciety picks his weapons rather quickly, and shortly after I pick my favorite combo, the sword and slingshot. The third player, on the other hand, chooses a single weapon. If this wasn't already bizarre enough, the weapon was not one of the 7 options available to the player, but instead appeared to be some sort of demonic, inscrutable sigil which resembled nothing I had seen in the game before. What the fuck? I murmured to myself, quite confused by what I was seeing. Surely, the game hadn't changed this much with the update? And if so, how could this player already have access to such features? I was entranced in thought when suddenly, a twisted whisper struck me.
Cease at once, or you're screwed and you will be punished.
Words cannot describe how much hearing this startled me. I was set aback and could hardly comprehend what had just happened. Thinking through every possibility, I realized this must be the voice chat feature that Roblox implemented a while ago and I had just recently gotten access to. Hard to believe that anybody would troll in Combat Initiation out of all games. I unplugged my microphone after settling on this conclusion, and the elevator had risen to the crossroads, and wave 1 ended as quickly as it began. Audaciety swept through the waves with little resistance and I haphazardly stumbled along. The third player, on the other hand, was nowhere to be seen, although his presence was most certainly felt. Enemies would mysteriously die despite the fact neither me or Aud were killing anything. I assumed this elusive third player was simply camping an enemy spawn to rack up kills or something of the sort. But once Wave 5 ended and the shop arrived, I was shocked to see that the shopkeeper was nowhere to be seen. In his place was the severed head of the Stage 3 boss, Vagabond, with blood pooling around his neck and running off the counter he rested on. I imagine Audaciety was equally puzzled, as he attempted to send a message in chat, however, it was tagged every time he tried to send it. I believe it was nothing more than a short exclamation, so he had gotten the point across regardless. Despite the peculiar display before me, I was more curious as to where the third player was. Surely he would come to the shop to purchase something? But alas, the time counted down and the shop descended with the third player nowhere to be seen. Although, when the elevator closed on the shop, a loud slam could be heard reverberating up the elevator, and blood trickled through the elevator doors. If this morbid sight wasn't enough, there was more. The map took on a more grotesque, red color scheme and a black fog enthralled the crossroads, making it difficult to see beyond 10 steps in any direction. As Wave 6 began, petrifying wails and screams of agony consumed the server, coming from all directions. At this point, I was ready to call it quits and leave Audaciety and the third player to deal with this themselves, but the very moment I tried to leave the game, I could feel a clawed grasp on my right hand digging deep into my flesh. I immediately tried to let out a scream, but when it came out, I could hear it playing through my headphones. I looked over to my microphone which was still unplugged, and a dark realization settled in. Soon, I heard the voice speaking to me again, sounding somewhat content with the torment which it had put me in.
Infinitesimal vermin. You You will play my game. You will adhere to my rules. Best my ways and you may run free. Fail, and you shall join the ranks of the dead.
Kinda cringe. Despite this, I understood that I had no choice but to try my hardest to conquer these waves. This would be made difficult due to the injury I had sustained, and upon closer inspection I saw that this wound was mirrored to my character, who was now bleeding from his right arm. Audaciety, although unable to communicate due to the chat censoring, seemed to have come to the same understanding. The third player was, obviously enough at this point, the conspirer behind this wicked ordeal, but it was to much greater surprise when I looked to the leaderboard and saw underneath his name, 600 tickets, 66 lives. Whatever this being was, it was clearly of satanic origin. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream enveloped the crossroads. Before I then saw Audaciety respawn, although missing his left leg. The implications of this terrified me, and I looked to the leaderboard to see that I now had 2 lives remaining. We struggled through the waves, the enemies taking on a mutilated and quite haunting appearance, some of them resembling Burns victims and others looking like they'd just gotten out of a plane crash. By wave 10, we were approached by a daunting challenge, an exasperating foe who could only be recognized as Jeff the Killer. When he arrived, he said his signature phrase, "I'm Jeff the Killer, and I will Jeff the kill you." At this point, I could feel my heart pounding as even a few waves before this were rather difficult. Luckily, Audaciety and me coordinated as best as we could and managed to push our teamwork skills to the limit in order to kill Jeff. Our final adversary fell to the ground and a puddle of blood entrenched him. I knew at that moment, however, that more had to be coming, so the relief I felt was short-lived. As it turns out, I was correct. Jeff the Killer wasn't the boss of Wave 10. Merely a lackey to ready us for our demise. The name of the third player on the leaderboard unveiled itself and could at once be read. A name I would not forget. Jason's Requiem. Within seconds, the idling chainsaw could be heard, approaching ever closer until it emerged from the darkness and cleaved Audaciety in half before he could so much as acknowledge Jason's attack. Audaciety soon respawned, now missing his left arm. But Jason did not relent. Aud drew his final breath long before he died, but he held strong against Jason's vicious assault, even managing to retaliate and cleave into Jason's rotting flesh. This did not stagger Jason whatsoever, and Audaciety was soon after overwhelmed, his head severed from between his shoulders and tumbling to the floor. Godspeed, you selfless warrior. I was left alone just as I had been in my countless runs before, this time against a much more powerful version of Jason and now with my life on the line. Various emotions coursed through my veins, and I saw a vision of my deceased friend Jason, alongside the recently killed Audaciety, both cheering me on. Seeing that their spirits still lived on and wished to see me succeed, I was rekindled with an insurmountable strength and fervent rage, hoping for nothing more but to cause this detestable villain to be torn to shreds, and sure enough, I had just the tool to do so. During Wave 5, I had managed to find a hidden multi-rocket launcher inside of the shop, and using this weapon, I shot at Requiem Jason, rending his flesh and sundering his mask, revealing a putrid, decayed visage, with nightmarish eyes and a vile grin which barely clinged onto his face. Severely wounded, he limped towards me, readying his chainsaw over his head, but I didn't flinch. Just as he brought his mighty chainsaw down, I parried it. His rotted arm crumbled under the pressure, his chainsaw dropping to the ground and falling silent. Requiem Jason collapsed immediately after, and he too was silent. Although I had only beaten Wave 10, the game ended immediately, and I was sent back to the lobby, reunited with countless other players once more. I did not bask in the viridescent colors of the spawn area, and instead left the game immediately and went outside. If it wasn't for Audaciety, I may have never been here today. Thank you, Aud. May your soul rest easy.